Hi, welcome back to Refactor Your Money. My name's Max, I'm an accredited financial counselor, and in this video, I want to talk about tracking your spending. I'm going to spend the first half of the video discussing 3 reasons why it's the most critical place for you to start any financial refactor effort. And then I'd like to spend the second half providing you with 4 examples of ways to track your spending, running through some pros and cons of each so you know you can choose the best one for you. So, starting out, why should I track my spending? Well, there are 3 reasons why tracking your spending should be one of the first things you do when you embark on a financial refactor effort. The first reason is that it determines your cash flow. Now, your cash flow is simply the amount of money you bring in on a monthly or annual basis minus the amount of money you spend or the expenses that go out. Now, most people will, if you're anything like me at least, you'll know how much you make, right? When you're first starting out your journey, you'll have a pretty clear idea of what your salary or your wage is. You get your paycheck every 2 weeks. You know what to expect in that regard. So you have a pretty decent idea of what you bring in. But most people, or a lot fewer people at least, have a much murkier picture of what actually goes out, where they're spending their money, how much their expenses truly are, and what their cash flow looks like. And because cash flow is such a critical part of your financial health, it's really the rocket fuel that propels your financial journey. It's incredibly important to understand what your cash flow is. So tracking your spending is the first part of that. Until you track your spending and understand big picture how much you spend on top of where it goes, which categories it goes to the most, it's pretty much impossible to really start figuring out any sort of go forward plan. Which brings me to part 2, why it's so important. It's the basis for any ongoing spending plan, right? So if you want to conduct a financial refactor, start transforming your personal financial life, what you really need to do is have some goals, right? You have to know where you're going, right? So you have to have some idea of what you want your end state to be. And in order to do that, you have to have a plan. Now, you can't have a financial plan or a budget or any sort of conscientious or mindful spending strategy until you know where you're starting, right? And tracking your spending allows you to see that. So until you can't really make a plan, you can't really develop a budget until you have some sort of basis for that, right? You can't just make up some numbers randomly, right? You have to have some actual data in there to have as a foundation to jump off of as you are bucketing your money into the categories that you want to spend it on. And then lastly, number 3 is that it helps you understand your retirement savings target. Now, what does that mean? Well, it's pretty widely accepted, thanks to the Trinity study, which I can get into in a future video, that a safe withdrawal rate for a 30-year retirement is 4% of total retirement assets available. So now if you turn that on its head, 4% basically represents 25 times your spending, right? 25 times 4 is 100. So if you take your annual spending, multiply that by 25, that is your retirement savings target. So as an example, if you spend $100,000 a year, right? You've tracked your spending maybe 1 month, 3 months, or even better for a whole year. You know exactly what you spend in a year. You can take that number and you can multiply it by 25, and the number that you get on the other side of the equation is your target retirement number. So for a $100,000 annual spend, that would be $2.5 million, right? 100,000 times 25 equals $2.5 million. So until you track your spending, you really can't fully understand what you're shooting for when it comes to retirement. So that is way number 3, that tracking your spending is a critical part of any financial refactor journey. It helps you plan for retirement. Now I want to pivot into talking about different ways you can track your spending. And I want to focus on 4 ways in particular, starting with the most manual and analog, and then moving into the most automated and tech heavy. So starting off, number 1 is with pen and paper. So this is the traditional way you might think about it from the old days or growing up. Maybe your parents did this. You would essentially what it involves is carrying around either a notebook with you. It could be a small moleskin, or it could be a larger notebook that you keep at home. But the idea is that you have a notebook that's dedicated just for this purpose, whereby you enter in each day the transactions, the financial transactions that occurred for your family. So that could look like, again, carrying the notebook around with you throughout the day. And each time you make a transaction, you either withdraw cash from an ATM, or you go to the store and swipe a card, or maybe you're using cash at the grocery store. You are marking that down in your notebook, how much you spent, the amount, where you spent it, and what category, if any, you'd like to assign that transaction to. You do that throughout the day. You do it for however long you'd like to. Ideally, at least a month. 3 months is even better. And ideally, a whole year would be the perfect way to, not perfect, but perhaps the most optimal way to do it. And then at the end of the day, or at the end of the year or month, you've got a pretty clear picture of where your money's going, right? So the pros of this are that it's very low tech. You don't have to have any tech savvy at all. It's totally free. It's flexible. You can do it however you'd like. So it's pretty simple, right? There isn't a lot of complexity there. The cons, of course, are that because it's manual and analog, it can be difficult to analyze. It can be kind of a pain to remember to keep all your receipts or bring the notebook with you. You might forget it one day and then have to go back and try to redo all your transactions later. So it's a little error prone. So that's way number one. That's option number one. Option number two is relying on bank statements. Now this is slightly less manual, and it works really well if you're the type of person who spends generally on either a debit card or a credit card. You aren't doing a ton of ATM withdrawals. And that is because you can just, at the end of the statement cycle, log into your bank online portal, online app, click on your statements, find the statement for that month, download it, and now you've got the full list of transactions. You didn't have to do any logging yourself. The bank did that logging for you. The pros of this obviously are that it's automatic. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. The bank sort of takes care of it for you. It's all aggregated in one place on your statement. And all you have to do is one time at the end of the month, go through all your transactions and categorize them the way you'd like and come up with sum totals for each category. The cons, of course, are that you have to do all your spending on cards. If you do a lot of cash withdrawals from ATMs, it becomes more difficult to track where that cash is actually going, right? You have one single ATM withdrawal transaction from the ATM, but you don't necessarily have any further records or any sort of drill down data about where that cash went, unless you're supplementing with saving receipts and documenting that in a notebook, right? Using the previous method in conjunction with this one. Second con is that banks often have their statement cycles on beginning and ending on different dates of the month. So you might have one statement cycle that ends on the 10th of the month and another that ends on the 25th of the month, right? So it doesn't offer you that clean 1st to 31st the way tracking in a notebook might. And then finally, the last con is that, again, similar to in a notebook, it's a little harder to analyze, right? You're having to either convert that into some other method of data visualization, like maybe you input that stuff into a spreadsheet, or you put it in a notebook later to try to analyze it that way. Some people will use highlighters, right? They'll highlight different transactions like groceries in green, entertainment in orange, rent in blue, and you kind of can get a sort of a high level visual idea of how much money is going where based on the colors on the statement. But that's one way to do it. So that's number two, is just relying on your bank statements. Method number three is, again, slightly more technologically advanced. You have to have a little more tech savvy here, or at least a little bit more familiarity with data management, and that is spreadsheets. Now, the beauty of spreadsheets, the pros of using a spreadsheet is that it's totally customizable. You can create your own spreadsheet to be exactly how you want it. However you like to have your data organized, you can feel free to organize it that way. It's also great for data visualization. You can run all kinds of analysis on the data once it's in there, on all the full list of transactions. You can split it into graphs. You can create month-to-month charts to start seeing trends. There's all kinds of options for things you can do in terms of planning and data analysis on the back end once all your data is in a spreadsheet. The cons, of course, are that you have to have a little tech savvy, like I mentioned up front. You have to be a little bit familiar with spreadsheets, or there could be a bit of a learning curve there. Another con is that you have to load your data into the spreadsheet, right? So you might have to combine a spreadsheet with saving receipts or doing a notebook, right? So you, at the end of the month, you've got your notebook. You might take all that data, enter it into the spreadsheet, and then run your analysis there. So you might need to use it in conjunction with another method for it to work at its best. But it's a fantastic way if you're a data person, which I am. As a software engineer, I love data and I love tech. It's a fantastic way to do it. So if that's what works for you, go for it. And then the final method is using software. And it's probably no surprise to you that this is my preferred method. I, again, as someone who works in software, I love this type of stuff. I love the idea of optimizing and automating, which is one of the huge pros of this approach. Basically what it involves is picking either a spending tracker or a budgeting app, and there's different apps with all kinds of different strengths and weaknesses. But you essentially choose the app of your choice. You can do a little research, and I can do another video on this, going through the pros and cons of each different spending tracker or budget management app. But basically, you create an account, you log in, and you start setting up all of your bank accounts to sync automatically with that app. So you might have a checking account, you might have a savings account, you might have joint or personal accounts with your spouse if you're married, or your partner. You might also have some investment accounts. You might have a mortgage or a home that you want to track the value there. And so there are ways to basically you sync all those things together, and the app every period of time, it might be every few hours, it might be every day, will basically sync the values and all the transactions from those accounts into one place. So you can see all your transactions automatically being generated. And even better, a lot of these apps will automatically categorize the transactions for you. So not only does it stream the transactions automatically at no effort to you, but it also automatically interprets based on the merchant on that transaction, what category that transaction falls into. So you might go grocery shopping, and it will just know from the fact that you went to a merchant whose name matches a grocery store in their database that that's a grocery store, and that transaction will not only stream into the list of transactions for the month automatically, it will also be categorized as it comes in as groceries. So all you really have to do is every few days or whatever cadence you'd like, you just log in, check the last few days or week or that day if you're an everyday type of person, which I was myself at one point. You just go in and check, review your transactions, and recategorize them if you need to. And you can also set up rules, automatic rules, so that certain merchants are categorized in certain ways. So that's a fantastic automated way to do it. And then at the end of the month, it's very simple. You can either download a CSV, you can export the data into whatever format you'd like, or you can rely on the data visualizations from the actual app itself to analyze and get sort of a post-mortem view of your spending for that month. The cons, of course, are that, again, it's a lot of work up front. You do have to set up and structure all those accounts, organize them the way you want, add or remove any categories you do or don't want to use. You have to deal with making sure that the bank accounts are staying in sync with the app, which sometimes those will fall out of sync, and that can be sort of a pain to manage. And you have to have a little bit of tech savvy, right? You have to sort of be a tech person. You have to be into this kind of thing. And often it can cost money. So not all apps cost money. I used to use Mint. My wife and I would use Mint, and that was totally free. But a lot of them these days will require either an annual or monthly subscription. So you have to be prepared or ready to fork out a little bit of investment up front for the benefit of the automation and the convenience of the automatic tracking. So that is method number 4. So I really hope that was helpful for you. I really hope coming out of this you have an idea for the power and the value of tracking your spending. It is really one of the first things I do in my practice with my clients, and it's the first thing I did for myself when I was starting my own financial refactor personally. Really, there is so much power that comes out of understanding your spending, and it really unlocks so many other steps in the process. So I really do encourage you to start there. Just spend a month or 3 months even just tracking. You don't even have to change too many habits unless you want to. But really just tracking and understanding where your money's going has a huge impact on the rest of the process. And if you want a little bit of extra helping hand with that, I do have a free 3-step guide, financial refactor guide. It's a 30-day exercise, 3 steps, very clear, very simple, that you can download. I'll put it in the description below to the landing page to download that. It'll help you out with getting started. It gets you clarity. It gets you an understanding of what's going on, and it gives you an idea of where you want to go and take your finances next, what the next thing should be with your money. So I really encourage you to go ahead and download that if you think that would be of use to you. And if you think you want an even more customized one-on-one helping hand, I also offer coaching, so I would be happy to meet with you for a 50-minute coaching call. Again, there's a link down in the description for that as well. If you're interested, to go ahead and schedule a call with me. I'd be happy to talk to you. I love chatting with any of the viewers on this channel. Anyone you know, if you think they could benefit, please go ahead and click that link and get yourself on the schedule. And then lastly, I would really love it if you would comment below. And I said this in my previous video as well, but I really do want this channel to be about you. I really do want it to be valuable. I don't want it to just be me blabbering on about whatever's on my own mind or what I think you might want. I would really love to know what you need. And again, I have a list of ideas myself that I'm pulling from my own practice, from clients I've worked with in the past, and my own experience. But if there's anything out there that you have a question about or you're struggling with, please do comment in the comment section below so that I can answer that question and help you out. And then lastly would be, if you got any value out of this video, I really hope you will subscribe to my channel, click the like button, or click on the bell to get notified of any of my sort of ongoing content, anything that might help you in the future. And I would really love to have you along as I continue this journey myself, and as I continue to offer up more hopefully actionable and helpful advice for you. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Thank you so much for watching this video, and remember to always keep refactoring.